Some bikes look fast, feel tough, and promise the ride of a lifetime. But the bike you're buying might actually be a ticking time bomb. Here are 10 motorcycles only dumb people buy, and the shocking truth behind why these two-wheel disasters are best left at the dealership. Number 1. Harley-Davidson Street 500-750. Alright, let's start with the Street 500 and 750 from Harley-Davidson. On paper, they seem like a great way to get into the Harley world without spending a fortune. But once you hop on one, reality hits hard, and not in a good way. These bikes were meant to be beginner-friendly Harleys, but they completely missed the mark on what makes a Harley, well, a Harley. Let's start with the engine. The 750cc Revolution X motor might sound decent, but it barely delivers 60 horsepower, and it feels more like a moped than a rumbling V-twin beast. Even worse, despite being liquid-cooled, these things overheat like crazy in traffic. You'd expect city riding to be their sweet spot, but instead, they turn into mini furnaces. Then there's the build. Everything from the controls to the suspension screams cost-cutting. Riders often complain about oil leaks, rusting exhausts, and electrical faults. The timing chain tensioner? That's a known weak spot, and many owners have had to deal with major issues before even hitting 5,000 miles. That's just ridiculous. Now, let's talk resale, because Harleys are known for holding value, right? Not these. They drop like rocks. A new one might cost around $7,500, but good luck selling it for even half of that in 2 years. Even hardcore Harley fans treat these bikes like the black sheep of the family. If you're dreaming of that iconic Harley sound and feel, this ain't it. Save up and go for a used Sportster or a proper Softail. The Street 500-750 won't make you feel like a badass biker. It'll make you wonder what the heck you just bought. Honestly, this is one Harley you'll try to park out of sight. Number 2. Honda DN01. Now here's a bike that makes you go, what were they thinking? The Honda DN01 is probably one of the most confusing motorcycles ever made. Honda, known for its practical and reliable machines, really dropped the ball on this one. It's like they threw a cruiser, a scooter, and a sport bike into a blender, and the result was, well, a mess. First off, the engine. It's got a 680cc V-twin that puts out about 60 horsepower. That's not much, especially when the bike itself is so heavy. But the real oddity is the transmission. Honda called it the human-friendly transition, basically a CVT automatic system. No gears to shift, and while that might sound convenient, it completely kills the rider's connection to the machine. Plus, the transmission's electronics are known to act up, especially when exposed to moisture. Not ideal when you're riding through unpredictable weather. And then there's the design. Arguably, its biggest flaw. Let's just say it confuses everyone. Too bulky and weird looking for cruiser lovers, way too big for scooter fans, and way too slow for sport bike guys. The seating position feels awkward, and the fuel tank design makes checking oil levels a total headache. It's like they didn't consider real riders at all. Unsurprisingly, it bombed in the market. No one really knew who this bike was for. It didn't ride like a scooter, didn't cruise like a cruiser, and definitely didn't perform like a sport bike. If you're looking for a reliable Honda, skip the DN01. This bike is more confusing than fun, and way more expensive than it should have been. Number 3. MV Agusta F4. Moving on, the MV Agusta F4 is like that Italian supermodel who takes your breath away, and then empties your wallet. Seriously, this bike is a masterpiece to look at. Designed by the legendary Massimo Tamburini, it's one of the most stunning motorcycles ever built. Park it anywhere and it'll draw a crowd, but once you actually ride it, or worse, own it, you start realizing this bike is all show and barely any go. First off, reliability is a joke. Envy calls it the Ferrari of motorcycles, and not just because of the styling. Unfortunately, it shares Ferrari's love for spending time in the shop. The electrical system is infamous. If you don't keep it hooked up to a battery tender constantly, it'll be dead in days. And don't be shocked if the engine decides to create issues mid-ride. They've been known to self-destruct randomly. And then there's maintenance. Valve adjustments alone cost more than a decent used Ninja 400. Parts, hard to find. Mechanics, scarce and expensive. Owning this bike means making friends with frustration. It overheats like mad too. Even though it's liquid-cooled, stop-and-go traffic makes it boil over. You'll get constant warnings telling you to stop and let it cool, turning city rides into roadside waiting sessions. Comfort should be a given, but in this case, just forget it. The riding position is punishing. With low bars, high pegs, it feels like a yoga pose designed to ruin your wrists and knees. Anything beyond a short ride becomes torture. And if something breaks, and it will, you'll be in for a long wait and a heavy bill. The dealer network is tiny, parts take forever, and most garages won't even touch it. It's a high-maintenance diva. Looks amazing, but unless you just want to stare at it in your garage, you're better off with a Japanese superbike. Which brings us to another showstopper from the past. Number 4, Big Dog K9. Let's be honest, if you walked past a Big Dog K9 back in the 2000s, you probably thought it looked badass. Long, low, stretched out with a fat 300 series rear tire. Pure chopper attitude. But once you start riding it, or worse, owning it, you realize this dog has more bark than bite. Big Dog bikes were all about flash, but under that custom paint and chrome, they were a mechanical mess. The biggest headache is the wiring. The factory electric harness controller is an electrical disaster. Most owners eventually end up replacing the entire system just to keep the thing running. And that's not cheap. You're easily out $1,000 with parts and labor. Then there's the transmission. A lot of failures happen because even trained mechanics didn't follow Big Dog's very specific instructions for clutch fluid and torque settings. The manual clutch is so stiff, your left hand will hate you after 20 minutes in traffic. Handling? Practically non-existent. That huge 300mm rear tire may look cool, but it makes turning feel like wrestling a wild hog. It just wants to go straight, and tight corners are terrifying. And when it's time to replace that tire, yep, it's $500 a pop. Starting problems are also common, and let's not forget about poor assembly quality. Some bikes were delivered with bead-blasting sand still in the oil passages. That's engine-ruining stuff. After Big Dog went bankrupt, a lot of customers were left with unsupported bikes and no warranty help. Now, from one nightmare to another. Number 5, Yamaha R3. On paper, the Yamaha R3 looks like a great entry into the sport bike world. It's light, has that aggressive R look, and it's got Yamaha's reputation behind it. But when you actually ride it, the cracks start to show fast. Let's start with the performance. The R3 has a 321cc twin-cylinder engine pushing out around 42 horsepower. Sounds decent, but once you hit the highway, you'll realize it's working way too hard just to keep up with traffic. There's barely any punch when you twist the throttle, especially if you're expecting that sharp R-Series sport bike feel. It's more like an economy commuter than anything with racing DNA. Now here's where things get worse. Recalls. Yamaha issued multiple recalls on the R3, including one for cracked radiator hoses that could leak coolant while you're riding. Spraying coolant on your tires could lead to a crash. Another recall involved faulty shifter springs that could leave you stuck in gear. Not ideal when you're out on the road. Even the cooling system is fragile. Hoses crack, Radiators are prone to damage, and you'll find yourself constantly checking coolant levels like it's a daily ritual. And despite being aimed at beginners, the aggressive riding posture and twitchy throttle response make it a tricky first bike. It's not very forgiving, especially at low speeds. The sad part? For the price of an R3, you could get something more practical or beginner-friendly. It sits in this awkward space, too tame for the sport bike fans, too uncomfortable for newbies. Most riders outgrow it within a year and end up wishing they'd saved their money for something more balanced. The R3 might wear the R badge, but it doesn't earn it on the road. Number 6. BMW R1200C. Next up, BMW saw how much Americans loved cruisers and decided, hey, let's build one too. Then came the R1200C, a bike that looks like a cruiser, kind of rides like one, but definitely doesn't feel like one. And that's the problem. This thing had a big 1170cc Boxer twin engine, but don't let that number fool you. It barely made 61 horsepower. That's not even impressive for an entry-level cruiser. You'd expect a strong, low-end grunt from a bike like this, but instead, it felt sluggish and underwhelming. Merging onto highways or passing slow traffic, you'd have more fun on a scooter. And handling? Let's just say this bike wasn't built for tight turns or confidence-inspiring rides. It weighs over 560 pounds and feels even heavier when you try to maneuver it in tight spaces. The Boxer engine sticks out awkwardly, killing your cornering clearance and reminding you at every lean that this wasn't made for twisty roads. Maintenance costs are another slap in the face. Like most BMWs, the R1200C demands specialized care. You're not just popping over to the local garage. You're scheduling a dealer appointment, paying premium labor rates, and often waiting on expensive parts. Want to replace the fork tubes? That's $663. Just to rebuild brake calipers? Over $150 in parts alone. The design didn't help either. It wasn't traditionally cruiser cool, and BMW fans weren't sure what to make of it either. It had an odd look, a hard seat, and rear suspension that made long rides feel like punishment. BMW killed it off after just a few years. The R1200C tried to be a cruiser but missed the point completely. Today it's more of a forgotten experiment than a beloved classic. And if you own one, good luck finding parts or a buyer. Which brings us to number 7, Honda NM4. The Honda NM4, also called the Voltus, is one of those bikes that makes you go, what exactly were they thinking? Honda tried to be bold with this one, blending anime-style design with futuristic vibes. It looks like something Batman might ride, if he was commuting to a grocery store. But under all that drama, it's mostly disappointment. Underneath the flashy panels is a mild 670cc parallel twin engine making under 50 horsepower. That might work for a scooter, but when your bike looks like a spaceship, you expect some serious performance. Instead, the ride feels numb. The automatic dual-clutch transmission removes any rider engagement. There's no shifting, no connection. It's like riding a fancy washing machine. And that transmission, expensive headaches. One rider had to shell out $750 just to fix a bolt that came loose because Honda forgot to use thread locker at the factory. Diagnosing problems with this bike often means throwing parts at it until something works. Not ideal. Then comes the design. Sure, it turns heads, but the screen's too low. The mirrors are practically decorations, and the seating looks cool but kills your back on longer rides. It's awkward all around. And the price? Honda asked over $11,000 when it launched. That kind of money could get you a well-rounded cruiser or a solid touring bike. Instead, you got minimal storage, noisy wind exposure, and a confused identity. The NM4 ended up being a stylish solution to a problem no one had. it didn't appeal to practical riders or performance lovers. It came, confused everyone, and quietly vanished from showrooms. If you ever spot one on the road, you'll likely find someone regretting their decision behind those futuristic handlebars. Number 8. CF Moto 300 NK. Now let's talk about number 8, the CF Moto 300 NK. At first glance, the CF Moto 300 NK looks like a solid deal. Sharp styling, low price, and enough features to catch your eye. But once you own it, you realize it's a bit like buying a cheap toolbox where every wrench breaks the moment you use it. Let's start with the engine. It's a 292cc single cylinder that sounds decent on paper, but in practice, it's riddled with issues. Vibrations get unbearable on long rides, and stalling happens way too often. Overheating is a common complaint even when you're not pushing it hard. The throttle feels jerky, especially in city traffic, which makes low-speed riding a chore instead of a breeze. The build quality is another major issue. Let's just say it's below bargain bin level. The welds on the frame look rushed, tires wear out quickly, and plastics crack or rattle after just a few months. There's even a known issue where the key bends just from regular use. Yes, the key. And don't get me started on the electronics. Batteries die early, electrical faults pop up often, and the cooling fan sounds like it belongs in a tractor. Owners say they've had to keep their bikes on a charge constantly, or else it won't even start. Now imagine needing a part. Good luck. Parts are hard to find and service centers are few and far between. Even when you get it into a shop, the mechanics might have to play guessing games to figure out what's actually wrong. So yeah, the 300 NK may seem like a cheap way to get on two wheels, but you'll end up paying the price in time, money, and frustration. It's a budget bike in the worst way. Looks decent at first, but quickly becomes a repair project you never asked for. Number 9. Ducati 749. The Ducati 749. On first glance, you think, this is it, the baby brother of the 999. It must be a steal. But once you actually ride one, that illusion fades fast. Ducati gave it the superbike looks, but sadly forgot to give it the superbike feel. The 749 packs a 749cc L-twin that makes around 100 horsepower. Sounds okay on paper, but twist the throttle and not much happens. The engine feels choked, like it's trying to break free but just can't. There's no surge, no signature Ducati punch. It feels like it's always working against itself, and the restricted rev range doesn't help either. Then come the reliability headaches. This thing is a maintenance black hole. Valve jobs cost a small fortune, and they come around more often than you'd like. Electrical faults? Oh, they live here rent-free. Faulty relays, rusted wiring behind the battery, and the infamous coil failures, all part of the 749 experience. The front coil placement is especially dumb, sitting right where front wheel spray hits it, so rainy rides often lead to misfires or no starts. Fuel system issues? Yep, got those too. Rust in the tank clogs up the filters, and the pump relay needs regular replacement. Even if nothing's broken, the regular service schedule alone, belts every 2 years, valves every 6,000 miles, makes ownership pricey. It doesn't fit anywhere. Not really for beginners, it's still a Ducati with issues, but seasoned riders often find it underwhelming and frustrating. It's in no man's land. Too slow for a true sport bike thrill, too expensive to maintain casually, and lacking the fan base that still adores the 999. Sure, you can pick one up cheap today, but don't be fooled. That low price is just the beginning of the bills. Number 10. Royal Enfield Himalayan. Last but not least, the Royal Enfield Himalayan should be a winner. It's simple, rugged looking, and priced just right for folks dreaming of dusty trails and cross-country rides. But in reality, it's a rough draft of what an adventure bike should have been. Let's start with build quality. The rubber parts, hoses, gaskets, everything start breaking down within 2 years. The side stand is laughably short, making the bike tip over with just a strong breeze. Throttle cutouts during gear changes and unpredictable idle speeds make city riding stressful and trail riding risky. And then come the electrical problems. Riders have reported the bike just shutting off mid-ride. No warning, just dead. That's just dangerous. Add to that an unstable ignition lock that often seizes up and an instrument cluster that fogs up during rain on a bike built for the outdoors, mind you, and the frustration piles up. The engine's no peach either. It stalls when cold, runs hot under normal use, and has throttle response that feels more like guesswork than control. Most owners end up installing aftermarket ECUs or boosters just to make it behave. The temp gauge is unreliable and overheating issues are common. Let's not forget the shocks. The rear shock is notorious for failing, and while replacements are affordable, it's one more thing on a growing list. Steering issues from poor grease and bearings on early models, low-grade switches, and spotty panel fitting all show Royal Enfield's inconsistent quality. So which one of these bikes do you think is the biggest disaster? Ever owned one you wish you hadn't? Drop your horror stories in the comments. We read every single one. And hey, if your engine still runs smoother than your love life, hit that subscribe button. It won't fix your bike, but it might fix your algorithm.